The city's a living thing, a massive, breathing beast that wakes up early and rarely sleeps. I've been driving its veins and arteries for 40 years, first with the old yellow cabs, and now with this newfangled app on my dashboard. They call me a gig worker. I call myself a witness. You learn a lot sitting behind this wheel, watching the world rush past in tiny 5 to 15-minute increments. You see the stress lines disappear when someone finally gets home, and the panic when they realize they left their briefcase at the bar. I'm 71 years old. My name's not important. Just call me Sam. Most people barely glance at me. I'm just part of the scenery, a temporary steel and glass box moving them from point A to point B. And that's fine. It gives me a vantage point. The things people say and do inside this bubble, thinking they're invisible, thinking they'll never see me again, well, those stories pile up. They sink into the upholstery. It was a Tuesday night, late enough that the city lights felt less festive and more isolating. The kind of night where the air is heavy with exhaust and unspoken loneliness. I got a ping for a pickup downtown, a part of the city that's all chrome and glass on the ground floor. But you know the history. It used to be cobblestones and back alleys. The app said the passenger's name was Lila. I pulled up to a slick high-rise office building, the kind with a lobby that costs more than my annual income. Out she came, hurrying. She was dressed in a sharp, expensive-looking suit, the kind that screamed power meeting gone wrong. Her face, though, was the first thing that grabbed me. She wasn't just tired, she looked actively frightened, not a startled jump scare kind of fear, but a deep, cold dread that seemed to radiate right through her skin. She slid into the back seat, and the moment the door shut, the atmosphere in the car changed. It went from quiet, dusty reality to tense, contained anxiety. She didn't look at me. Her hands were gripping her small, elegant handbag like it was a lifeline, her knuckles white. "Good evening," I offered, my standard calm greeting. I've learned to keep my voice low and steady. It's often the only anchor people have in those first few seconds of a late-night ride. She jumped slightly, as if she'd forgotten I was there. "Oh, sorry. Just the address in the app, please, quickly." Her voice was tight, thin. She sounded brittle, like a pane of glass vibrating at a high frequency. I nodded, already looking at the GPS. I typed in the suburban address. It was a long ride, about 45 minutes, heading straight out into the quiet, wooded areas outside the city sprawl. The kind of place you go when you want to forget the city exists. We drove in silence for a few miles, the highway lights sweeping across her face, revealing the tension held rigid in her jaw. I could sense the emotional pressure building back there. Sometimes you can just feel it, like static electricity before a storm. I kept my eyes on the road, giving her space, waiting for the inevitable crack. The silence broke when the GPS voice, that cheerful, impersonal female voice, announced the next direction. "In 300 feet, turn right onto Old Mill Road." Lila gasped. It wasn't a small intake of breath. It was a loud, sharp, agonizing sound, like someone had punched the air out of her lungs. I glanced up at the rearview mirror. Her eyes were huge, fixed on the road ahead, but seeing something far beyond the beam of my headlights. "No!" she choked out, her voice suddenly loud and piercing. "No, no, no! Don't take that road!" I hesitated, slowing down. The turn for Old Mill Road was coming up fast. It was the quickest route, the one the algorithm had decided was optimal. It was a dark, narrow road, lined with thick old trees, not one I usually like to take, but the GPS was adamant. "Ma'am, it's the fastest route according to the navigation," I said, trying to keep the confusion out of my voice. "Is there a reason you prefer another way?" Her terror seemed to reach out and touch me. It was a palpable wave of fear. "I don't care. Just keep going straight, please." "I'll pay you double, triple. Just don't turn there." She leaned forward, gripping the console between the front seats. Her polished professionalism was completely gone, replaced by raw, desperate pleading. What was on that road? This wasn't just someone avoiding traffic or a bumpy patch. This was a response to a memory, a trauma, something deeply rooted and terrifying. The urgency in her voice was a siren, demanding immediate attention. I bypassed the turn. The GPS immediately went into recalculation mode, the digital voice sounding slightly annoyed. "Recalculating, Proceed straight for 3 miles, then turn right onto Highway 12. As we drove past the mouth of Old Mill Road, a dark, yawning space between the trees, I felt the tension in the back seat slightly, momentarily abate. Lila didn't relax, but the immediate sharp edge of panic dulled to a low, desperate hum. She slowly slid back against the seat, breathing in shallow, ragged gasps. "Thank you," she whispered, the words barely audible over the hum of the tires. "Thank you, Sam." She had used my name. She must have seen it on the app screen when she got in. It was a strange little detail in the middle of all the fear, a sudden human connection. I kept driving straight, trying to process the shift. The GPS was recalculating, but my mind was too. What was she running from? Or more accurately, what was she running past? People carry their secrets like heavy luggage, but sometimes a route, a single road sign, can make them drop the whole bag right in the middle of your back seat. This was clearly more than a confession. It was an escape, and I was the one driving the getaway car. I had a feeling the story was only just beginning, and that dark, wooded road we had just passed was a ghost that was going to haunt the rest of our drive. The adrenaline in my own chest was starting to pump, not from fear, but from the sudden, stark realization that I was no longer just an anonymous driver. I was an unwitting participant in a drama I didn't yet understand. The tension was still thick, but now it was a slow, simmering heat, not the immediate blast of a panic attack. I drove on, taking the long way around, the highway stretching out under the sodium lamps. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't neutral. It was charged, heavy with the weight of that missed turn. Every mile we put between us and Old Mill Road seemed to release a fraction of the pressure in the back seat. I kept my gaze fixed on the road, but my mind was doing somersaults. 40 years, thousands of passengers, and I'd seen everything from proposals to breakdowns, from quiet tears to loud, drunken fights. But never this kind of raw environmental terror triggered by a navigation command. I let a few minutes pass, giving her time to regain some composure. I knew better than to pry immediately. Sometimes you just need to wait for the story to find its way out. Finally, I spoke, my voice gentle and neutral. That Old Mill Road, it's known for bad potholes. Maybe the GPS should stop suggesting it. It was a lie, a soft, non-invasive way to offer her an opening, a casual reason for her distress. Lila sighed, a shaky, shuddering sound that came from deep in her chest. She didn't take the bait. "It's not the potholes, Sam," she said, her voice still quiet, but now carrying an edge of profound weariness. "It's what's at the end of it. Or maybe what started on it." She paused, chewing on her lip, clearly battling with herself over how much to say, or if she should say anything at all. I just kept driving, offering nothing but the steady rhythm of the engine. That's often all people need, a sounding board that can't judge, a steady pulse in the chaos. "I didn't mean to shout," she finally confessed, the words almost a whisper. "I apologize. I'm not usually like this. That road is connected to something I spent the last 3 years trying to forget." My grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. I felt that familiar, creeping sense of dread that comes with realizing you're about to hear something truly dark. "Life has a way of reminding us of things we'd rather leave buried," I observed, offering her a bit of my own hard-won wisdom. She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Reminding us? No, Sam. It shoves it in our face. It puts it on the itinerary." She took a deep breath. "That road, that's where I last saw him, my husband Thomas." The simple statement hit the cabin like a cold wave. The pieces started to snap together, but the picture was still blurry and menacing. "I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am," I said sincerely. "It's the only respectful thing you can say when confronted with someone's sudden public grief." "Sorry doesn't cover it," she murmured. "We were arguing. A stupid, massive, ego-driven argument. He was furious. I was furious. It was late. We were driving home from a corporate dinner, and he insisted on taking the scenic route, Old Mill Road. I told him it was too dark, too isolated, but Thomas always had to be right. He pulled over, and we screamed at each other for a solid 10 minutes. The fluid motion of the car, the steady drone of the highway, it was a stark contrast to the violence and chaos she was recounting. She was painting a picture of domestic warfare, played out on a dark, lonely stretch of asphalt. The first hook of emotional tension was set, intrigue mixed with empathetic sadness. And then, I prompted softly, and then he just walked away. Her voice cracked. He walked right into the woods. Said he needed air, said he couldn't stand to look at me another second. He said he was going to walk to the nearest town and catch a cab. I waited for an hour, Sam. Just sat there, engine running, the moon barely shining through those awful trees. I called his name until my throat was raw, and then I panicked and drove home. I figured he was just trying to scare me, to punish me. I thought he'd be there when I got back. She was crying now, but quietly. Silent, powerful tears running tracks through her makeup. He wasn't there, I asked, though I knew the answer. She shook her head, a violent motion. He was never there. He was gone, vanished. The police searched for weeks. They thought he ran away. Maybe a midlife crisis, a new start. But I know Thomas, he'd be petty and cruel, but he wouldn't disappear. Not without his wallet, not without a word to his daughter. And they kept circling back to that road, that dark, empty road. Now the terror made absolute sense. The GPS hadn't just suggested a route. It had pointed her straight back to the site of her deepest, most unresolved trauma. She wasn't just afraid of the road. She was afraid of what she might find there. Or maybe what the road represented. The last place she was fully connected to the person she loved or hated. And every time I see that name pop up on a map, every time I hear that voice mention Old Mill Road, it's like a cold hand grabbing my throat, she confessed, gripping the back of my seat again, but this time it was for stability, not panic. The emotional arc was ascending, transitioning from fear to deep personal sorrow and unresolved guilt. She was sharing her darkest secret with a stranger, simply because the pressure had become too great to contain. My role had shifted again. I wasn't just a driver. I was a temporary confessor, holding the keys to her escape vehicle and her emotional past. We drove for a long time, bathed in the cool blue glow of the dashboard. Her confession had drained some of the initial panic, replacing it with a quiet, lingering sadness that felt heavier than the fear. Lila sat back, using her hands to blot the tears from her face, trying desperately to reassemble the professional mask that had shattered back at the turnoff. But once the glass is broken, you can't glue it back together in the dark. 3 years, I repeated softly, letting the silence swallow the number before continuing. That's a long time for a ghost to stay fresh. She nodded, looking out the window at the monotonous blur of the suburbs replacing the highway's edge. You never get closure, Sam. That's the worst part of a disappearance. If he had died, I could mourn. I could build a life again. But this is permanent purgatory. He's just missing. And every time the anniversary comes around, the police call, the media sniff around again, and I'm right back there in the driver's seat, watching him walk into the dark. I've heard 1,000 sad stories in this car, but the true ones, the ones weighed down by unresolved guilt, they always leave a mark. The emotional trigger here was guilt, a crushing, personal burden tied directly to a physical location. I decided to gently push, not out of morbid curiosity, but out of a driver's instinct to understand the hidden dangers of the road. The police decided he just left, you said, I asked, keeping my tone inquisitive, not accusatory. That was their first and favorite theory. Thomas was ambitious. He had debts they didn't know about. They said it was a calculated escape, but he left his phone, his wallet, everything. He wasn't calculating, he was furious. He meant to walk 5 blocks and then call someone to pick him up just to spite me. He never intended to vanish. I know it. Her voice was fierce now, fueled by 3 years of suppressed certainty. What about the argument? I asked. If it was bad enough for him to walk out on a dark, isolated road, what was it about? She hesitated, her breathing shallow again. This was the deeper layer of the secret, the personal vulnerability that people rarely share. It was about a promotion, she admitted, her gaze dropping to her tightly clasped hands. He was supposed to get it, the corner office. We'd sunk everything into this life, this image, but they gave it to someone else. He blamed me, said I hadn't played the corporate wife role well enough, said I hadn't charmed the right people. It was cruel, petty, and deeply unfair. The picture sharpened. A powerful man, his ego shredded, a fierce argument on a desolate road. He walks off to cool down, not expecting what comes next. "Did the police find anything at all on Old Mill Road?" I pressed. "A trace? Anything that pointed to foul play?" Lila shuddered. "Only what they found days later. His car keys, dropped right next to the spot where I was parked. They said he must have thrown them away in anger. But I told them, Thomas was meticulous. He didn't drop things. He threw them at people. If he walked away, he would have had his keys." The detail of the keys struck me. It was a small but potent piece of evidence that contradicted the official narrative of an intentional runaway. If he was walking, he had no use for the car. If he threw the keys away, he was rejecting the car and the life it represented. But if he was gone and the keys were merely dropped, it suggested a sudden interruption, a violent stop. I felt the growing weight of suspense. The air in the car now felt less like a confessional booth and more like an active crime scene. The emotional current shifted again, from personal guilt to mounting suspicion and dread. "So, you believe something happened to him on that road?" I concluded, stating the obvious truth that she couldn't bring herself to fully articulate. She finally looked at me in the rearview mirror, and her eyes held a desperate plea for validation. "I don't know what I believe, Sam. I only know that I watched him walk into the darkness. And sometimes, when the light hits the rear view just right, I think I see him standing there right where Old Mill Road forks off the highway, looking at the back of my car. And I keep driving, because I'm terrified of what he might say if I stopped." I didn't turn around. I kept my eyes on the road ahead, but the image she painted, the ghostly figure standing at the mouth of the dark road, was vivid and chilling. She wasn't just afraid of the road. She was afraid of her own role in his last moments, afraid of the ghost her guilt had created. The destination was still 30 minutes away, but I knew the most important journey was the one we were taking through her memory. The story had moved past grief and settled into a tense, unsettling fear. We were now on quieter residential roads, the houses set far back from the street, shadows deep and pervasive under the scattered streetlights. Lila was quieter, her confession giving way to a restless energy. She kept glancing into her side mirror, then over her shoulder, a habit I recognized, the hunted look. "Are you expecting someone at this hour, Lila?" I asked gently. I felt compelled to use her name now, a small recognition of the intimate trust she had placed in me. She jumped, startled, then lowered her voice. "No, that's the thing. I'm not expecting anyone, but I feel like I'm being watched. Ever since he vanished, I've felt it. Not just by the police or the nosy neighbors, but by someone else." The tension shifted from external road-based trauma to internal psychological stress, rapidly building towards paranoia. This was a classic emotional escalation, from specific dread to pervasive ambient fear. "Who?" I asked, keeping my tone level. I didn't want to confirm her fears, but I needed the details. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "It started with calls, hang-ups. Then things started moving in my house. Nothing big, just little things. My favorite photograph turned face down. A book I was reading placed on the wrong shelf. Things Thomas would have noticed. Things he would have been annoyed by. A chill ran down my spine, unrelated to the air conditioning. These weren't the actions of a ghost. They sounded deliberate, calculated. "Are you saying you think Thomas is doing this?" I asked, forcing myself to look straight into the mirror. She shook her head violently. "No, that's what's confusing. I sometimes wish it was him, because if it's him, he's alive. But the messages I've been getting lately, they're different, they're cruel." I waited. The road was empty ahead of us, just the two of us and her dark story. "2 months ago," she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I got a picture sent to my anonymous burner phone. A picture of Old Mill Road, just the road, empty, dark, and underneath it, a caption, 'Still waiting for you to come back for the keys.'" I felt a sudden, sharp jolt of alarm. This was no longer just grief or even psychological distress. This was harassment, threatening. Someone was actively taunting her using the exact, most painful detail of her loss. The emotional intensity ratcheted up again, from dread to genuine fear and urgency. "Have you shown this to the police?" I demanded. "Yes!" They were dismissive. Said it was likely a crank call, a journalist, or maybe a friend playing a sick joke. They said the burner phone couldn't be traced quickly enough to be useful. But it wasn't a joke, Sam. It felt like a warning. As she said that, I happened to glance in my side mirror. A car, a dark sedan, had been following us for perhaps the last 2 minutes. It wasn't tailgating. It was staying exactly 3 car lengths behind, just close enough to be noticed, but far enough not to seem aggressive. On a quiet street like this, that kind of consistent proximity stood out. My gut, the same one that had saved me from drunken fares and potential muggings for 4 decades, tightened. Coincidence? I couldn't afford to assume it was. "Lila," I said, my voice low and steady, pulling her focus away from her memories and back to the present. "I want you to look in the mirror. Tell me if you recognize the car behind us." She leaned forward, her eyes darting to the mirror. The dark sedan, its headlights gleaming, was right there. No, I don't think so. Wait, is it moving fast? It's just staying there." She sounded more confused than panicked, but the confusion was rapidly turning back into dread. "I'm going to make a few unexpected turns now," I announced. I didn't wait for her consent. I signaled right, then immediately took a quick left down a poorly lit side street. The sedan followed, perfectly mirroring my move. I sped up, passing 2 houses, then abruptly slammed on the brakes and turned hard into an even darker alley, pulling almost immediately to the curb and shutting off my headlights. We sat in absolute silence, the car engine ticking as it cooled. My heart was pounding, and I could hear Lila's quick, shallow breathing from the back seat. This wasn't a casual follower. This was intentional. The emotional build was peaking, immediate, pulse-pounding threat. We waited for 10 seconds, then 20. The dark sedan glided past the mouth of the alley, its headlights illuminating the corner for a fleeting moment. It wasn't looking for a house number. It was looking for us. Lila let out a suppressed cry of pure terror. "They're following me, Sam. Oh God, they're following me. Who is that?" I put the keys back in the ignition, the smooth click sounding deafening in the silence. "Doesn't matter who. We're going to lose them. Hold on tight." I had driven in this city for 40 years. I knew shortcuts, blind spots, and the routes the GPS would never suggest. I was no longer just a driver. I was her protector in a steel cage, and the drive had just become a high-stakes, terrifying chase. The engine roared back to life, the sound muffled by the narrow alley walls. My heart was still hammering against my ribs, but the fear was replaced by the cold, clear focus of experience. Adrenaline is a useful thing when you're 71. It makes the city map in your head sharper. I wasn't going to rely on the app now. I was driving by memory, by muscle, by instinct. I shot out of the alley, ignoring the stop sign, and immediately took 3 quick, counterintuitive turns. A left onto a residential road, a right through a school parking lot, and then a quick U-turn onto a one-way service street. I was deliberately violating every rule in the driver's manual, using the city's grid against itself. The goal wasn't just to escape their sight, but to break their pattern, to confuse the pursuit. Lila was silent, clutching her bag with a grip so tight I thought she might tear the leather. Her breathing was ragged, a sound of pure panic. "They know who you are, Lila," I stated, my voice low and firm, focused on the road. "And they followed you from that high-rise. They've been watching you all night. That wasn't a coincidence. Now, you need to tell me what's in that bag, or what you know that makes someone follow you this far and this aggressively." The question, asked amidst the screech of tires and the rush of passing streets, finally broke her. The terror of the chase had stripped away the last layer of corporate composure. "It's not in the bag," she gasped, tears mixing with the sweat on her face. "It's what I did. It's what I didn't tell the police about Thomas. It was all tied up with the argument, with Old Mill Road, with everything." I whipped the car around a corner, cutting off a minivan, narrowly avoiding a collision. I saw the flash of the dark sedan 2 streets over, their lights momentarily sweeping down the wrong path. We had gained time. I needed the truth now. "Tell me," I commanded. "If I'm risking a felony, I need to know the why." She took a huge, shuddering breath. The promotion he lost, it wasn't just a loss of status. It was a loss of leverage. Thomas, he wasn't just ambitious. He was involved. deeply. His promotion was contingent on him delivering certain sensitive documents, corporate espionage. He was going to expose a massive internal scandal, leveraging the threat for his VP title. The stakes had just skyrocketed. This wasn't about a marriage or a missing person. It was about power, crime, and perhaps murder. The emotional intensity was reaching its climax, a desperate confession of a crime. "The argument on Old Mill Road," she continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It wasn't just about my role. It was because I told him I wouldn't let him do it. I threatened to go to the company myself. I told him I'd burn his career to the ground to protect us. That's why he walked out. Not just anger, but betrayal. He knew I was serious." "So someone heard?" I asked, weaving expertly through a deserted housing development. "Someone followed you both that night?" "I don't know," she cried. "But I left him standing there, Sam. I drove home, and when he didn't show up, I went back to the house we rented for the week for the dinner, and I found his briefcase, the one he always kept locked. I slowed the car, finally hitting a main road, a wide, well-lit boulevard. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. We had lost them, but the tension in the car remained high. What was inside the briefcase, Lila? She finally opened her clutch bag, not to pull out a weapon or an item, but a single folded piece of paper. She held it up, trembling. "Not the briefcase, Sam. The one thing Thomas kept separate. This. It's a bank wire transfer confirmation, dated 3 days before he disappeared. A massive amount, almost $1 million, wired out of a Cayman Islands account and into my dormant private account." I nearly swerved off the road. "He transferred the money to you? Why?" "Protection," she whispered, her voice cracking with the revelation. "He knew he was in danger. He was using the scandal to get the promotion, but he knew the risk. He told me once, 'If I ever disappear, check the old private account. It's for you and our daughter.' It was hush money, or maybe leverage money, meant to be bait. When the police investigated, they found his debts, his ambition, but they missed this account. It was too small, too old. The true threat was now clear. The people Thomas was leveraging or running from discovered the money trail, or realized Lila was the only person who knew about the account. The sedan that followed her wasn't looking for Thomas. They were looking for the money and the only person who could lead them to it. I pulled onto the final familiar street. We were only 2 blocks from her destination. The silence was absolute, broken only by our labored breathing. The emotional landscape was one of profound relief mixed with extreme danger. She had confessed, but the threat was still out there, knowing where she lived. "We're here," I said, pulling up to a large, quiet suburban home. "Now you know they're watching. What's the plan?" She looked at the house, her sanctuary, with absolute dread. "I need to get inside. I need to get the actual money. It's not digitized, it's gold. I need to take it and run." She was fully exposed, standing at the precipice. I, the anonymous driver, was the last person to hear her truth, her biggest sin, her desperate plan. I looked down at the GPS, which had rerouted us successfully around the darkness of Old Mill Road. It had gotten her home, but it had also delivered her, and now me, into the crosshairs of a deadly, unresolved mystery. We were parked directly in front of her house. The porch light was off, plunging the entrance into an inviting but deeply suspicious darkness. The silence now was unbearable. It wasn't the natural quiet of a suburban street. It was the tense, held-breath silence of a trap. Lila was a wreck, her composure entirely gone, replaced by raw desperation. The sophisticated executive was just a frightened woman clinging to a life raft. "Gold?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "He transferred money and bought gold. How much are we talking about?" "Enough," she rasped, "to start over anywhere. Enough to make me a target. He had a safe hidden in the study. I need 5 minutes, Sam. 5 minutes to grab it and get back to this car. Please. I don't have anyone else." I looked at her, then back down the street, expecting the dark sedan to reappear at any moment. I was a 71-year-old taxi driver. My contract explicitly stated I was not a getaway driver, an accomplice, or a witness to organized crime related to corporate espionage. My logical mind screamed for me to take the fare, drop her, and drive away fast, call the police, or just forget the whole night. But 4 decades of seeing people at their absolute worst, and sometimes their most vulnerable, made that impossible. She was terrified, and she was alone. The emotional pull was the final critical decision: moral obligation versus personal safety. "Lila," I said, meeting her eyes in the mirror, "you need to be completely honest with me. Did you have anything to do with Thomas's disappearance? Did you threaten him that night, not just with turning him in, but with something else?" Her eyes widened, shining with genuine, unfeigned terror. "No, Sam, I swear it. I was angry, yes, but I drove away to scare him, to make him call me, apologize. I never laid a hand on him. If I knew what happened, if I knew he was dead, I wouldn't be running from shadows. I'd be in jail or mourning. I'm running because I'm afraid of the people who took him, and I think they figured out I have the only thing he cared about more than his life." It was the truth. I felt it in the steady, honest tremor of her voice. She was guilty of driving away, of monumental guilt, but not of murder. I looked at the house again. "If you go in there and they're waiting, I'm useless. I'm an old man with a hybrid sedan." "They won't be in the house yet," she insisted. "They were following me from the office, waiting for me to lead them to it. The money isn't in the house itself. It's buried under the rose bushes in the backyard. I just need to get the small shovel from the study and the old map he left for me." A new wave of urgency washed over me. The clock was ticking. If they lost us, they would double back to the last known location, her house. They'd be here within 5 minutes. "Stay low," I commanded. "Run, don't turn on any lights. I'll keep the engine running and I'll be watching the street. If I flash the headlights 3 times, you abandon everything and get back here immediately. Understand?" She nodded, tears streaming silently, but her eyes now held a spark of desperate resolve. She opened the door, slid out with a speed that belied her expensive suit, and vanished into the darkness beside the garage. I sat there, every muscle in my body coiled tight. I was exposed, idling on a dark suburban street at midnight, an accomplice in a $1 million corporate thriller. I felt the minutes stretch into hours. The GPS, sitting innocently on my dashboard, had finished its route. It just said, "You have arrived at your destination." A bitter irony. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes. I scanned the empty street, the shadows merging and twisting. Every distant car noise sounded like the return of the dark sedan. Then, the back door opened, and Lila scrambled back inside. She wasn't carrying a small bag. She was dragging a heavy, dirty canvas duffel bag. It was too heavy for her to lift easily. She shoved it onto the floor, collapsing into the seat, breathing hard. The scent of damp earth and roses mixed with her expensive perfume. "Drive, Sam, please drive. I think I saw something by the fence." I didn't hesitate. I slammed the gas pedal, spinning the tires as I pulled away from the curb. I drove fast, taking side roads, avoiding the main arteries, running lights and stop signs with a panicked expertise I hadn't used in years. I didn't stop until we hit the state line highway, heading north towards the mountains. "Where are we going?" I asked, looking at the bag of gold on the floor, the silent, heavy proof of her story. She leaned forward, her voice hoarse, but with a new, steel-like resolve. "The nearest airport, international. I need to disappear, just like he did, but I need to do it right. You saved my life, Sam. I know I can't pay you, but..." She reached into her small clutch and pulled out the folded paper, the wire transfer receipt. "This has all the account details. Give this to the police. Tell them the truth. Tell them what Thomas was involved in and what they need to look for on Old Mill Road. It's the only way to find out who took him. It's the only way to stop them from finding me." I took the paper. It was a flimsy piece of evidence against a dark sedan and a $1 million conspiracy, but it was all she had. I drove her to the airport, watching her walk away with the heavy duffel bag, watching the last witness to my long night disappear into the throng of early morning travelers. I never saw Lila again. I spent the next day trying to reconcile the paper with my duty. Did I turn in the evidence and risk bringing the pursuit back to my own doorstep? Or did I drive on, keep the secret, and keep the ghost of Old Mill Road silent? In the end, I did what I always do. I took the long way around. I mailed the envelope anonymously from a different state, the details inside hinting at a powerful crime without implicating myself or Lila. I kept driving. I kept listening, because in this job you learn that every passenger is carrying a heavy burden, but only the truly dangerous ones are carrying gold. And sometimes, the most dangerous road isn't the one the GPS tells you to avoid. It's the one that leads you right back to your own past. And for Lila, that past was still waiting, silent and dark, at the turnoff for Old Mill Road.